It is the middle of a July afternoon, and the fan in the corner is just pushing the hot air around. You sit in front of it, and all it does is blow the heat back at you, like standing behind a mule on a hot day. A fan does not cool the air. It only moves it. And on the worst afternoons, moving the hot air around is no comfort at all. Now I want you to sit with this. There is an old, plain trick, older than any machine, that takes that same fan and that same hot air and turns it into a stream of air 10 and even 15 degrees cooler for the cost of a few dollars and a few minutes. No compressor, no refrigerant, no special anything, just water, air, and a piece of understanding that folks have had for thousands of years, and we somehow set down and forgot. I am Earl Dean. Today, I am going to show you how the old folks cooled the air with nothing but water and a breeze. And I'm going to be honest with you about the one place it works like a miracle, and the one place it does not work at all. Sit with me a while. One thing before I begin. The old methods I share here, there is far too much to fit in any one video, so I gathered the whole of it into a book at my website, earldeanbook.com, for the folks who want the long version. 99 methods, all in one place. I will not mention it again. If you want it, you know where to look. Now, the cool air. Let me start with the plain bit of understanding that the whole thing rests on, because once you have it, you will see it everywhere for the rest of your life. When water dries, when it goes from wet to vapor and lifts off into the air, it drinks heat to do it. It has to. It cannot make that change without pulling energy, and it pulls that energy as heat right out of whatever it is touching. That is why you feel a chill when you step out of the creek on a breezy day, even in the heat of summer. The water drying off your skin is carrying the heat away with it as it goes. That is why a dog pants and a horse sweats and a man wipes his brow. The body has always known this trick. When water leaves, it takes the heat with it. So the whole of this method is just putting that truth to work on purpose. If you can get hot, dry air to pass across water so that the water dries into it, that air will give up its heat to the drying water, and it will come out the other side, cooler than it went in. You are not making cold. You are letting the water carry the heat off. The old folks called it many things, or nothing at all, but the science men call it evaporative cooling, and it is the oldest cooling there is. Now the ancient folks did this on a grand scale, and it is worth knowing they did, because it tells you the thing truly works. In the old hot lands, in Persia and Egypt, they hung wet mats of woven grass and reed across the windows where the wind came through and kept them wet, and the hot desert wind blowing through those wet mats came into the room cooled and freshened. The great kings had wine towers built to catch the high breeze and run it down across water before it reached the rooms. And out on the American plains, in the dry heat, the old folks hung a wet sheet in the doorway or the open window on a hot day and let the breeze come through it, and the room behind it cooled. Same trick, small or grand. Wet cloth, moving air, cooler on the other side. Now here is how you make yourself a proper little cooler of it. Better than a bare wet sheet for a few dollars. And this is the part they showed that got so many folks excited. You take a plain fan, the box fan you likely already own, and you rig up something wet for it to blow through. The simplest way is a wet towel or a piece of thick, wet cloth hung in front of the fan, so the fan pulls or pushes the air through the wet cloth. The air comes out the far side cooled by the water drying out of that cloth. That is the whole of it, and it costs you a towel and a bowl of water. But you can do better and steadier than a towel. And here is the cleverer build. You want more wet surface for the air to touch, and you want it to stay wet on its own, so you are not forever wringing a towel. So folks take a plain container, a bucket or a tub, and a special kind of pad, what they call a cooler pad, a thick fibrous mat that soaks up water and holds it and lets air pass right through it. These pads cost only a few dollars. You stand the wet pad up in front of the fan, with its bottom edge sitting in a shallow tray of water, so it wicks the water up and stays wet all on its own. the way a lamp wick draws oil. The fan blows through that big wet pad, the water dries into the moving air, and out comes a steady stream of cooled air, 10 degrees cooler, and sometimes more on a good dry day. Keep the tray topped up with water, and it runs and runs. That is the $20 box that cools the air. A fan you had, a few dollars of pad, a tray of water. And I will tell you, on the right day, in the right place, the difference is something you feel the instant you put your hand in front of it. Not a little. A real, cool, refreshing stream of air, for pennies of electric to run the fan, and not one drop of refrigerant. Before I go on to the honest part, and there is an important honest part, let me pause a moment. Every home has its leaks. The heat pouring in, the electric bill for the cool, the water, the food that spoils, the things that break and get bought twice. In my savings manual, I walk you through finding and fixing every one of them, 99 methods, the old way, with your own 2 hands. The link is in the description. Now, the honest part, and you must hear this one, because it is the whole difference between this working and disappointing you. This method lives and dies by one thing, and that is how dry your air is. And I need you to understand why, because it is the key to the whole business. Remember, the cooling comes from water drying into the air. Well, air can only hold so much water. Dry air is thirsty. It will drink up the water from your wet pad fast and greedy, and pull a great deal of heat out doing it, and give you that fine, cool stream. But damp air, humid air, the thick, wet air of a muggy summer is already near full of water. It cannot drink much more, and so the water on your pad will not dry into it. And if the water will not dry, you get no cooling. Worse, you have just added more damp to air that was already too damp, and a damp, warm room feels worse than before, sticky and close. So here is the plain rule, and burn it into your memory. In dry heat, this is a wonder. In wet heat, it is near useless and can even make things worse. If you live in the dry country, the high plains, the mountain west, the desert southwest, Arizona, New Mexico, Nevada, the dry parts of Texas and California and Colorado, this simple wet pad cooler will change your whole summer for a few dollars. That is exactly why the folks out in those dry lands have used what they call swamp coolers for 100 years, which is this very same trick in a bigger box. But if you live where it is humid, the deep south, the Gulf Coast, the wet east in August, the muggy middle of the country in a wet spell, then I will be square with you. This is not your method, and no amount of wishing will make the water dry into air that is already full. For you, the answer is the moving air, and the shade, and the night flushing I have spoken of before. Not this. There is one honest way to know before you build a thing. On the hot day, you want cooling. Check whether your air is dry or wet. If the day is hot but dry, and the sweat dries quick off your arm, and the heat feels sharp and baking, this will work for you. If the day is hot and sticky, and your shirt clings and the sweat just sits on you and will not dry, then the air is too wet, and this will not help. Your own skin will tell you, the same way it always has. If your sweat cools you, the wet pad will cool you. If your sweat just sits there, the wet pad will just sit there too. Now let me give you the other honest cautions, quick and plain, because I always will. Keep the water clean and fresh. A tray of water sitting warm can grow slime and mildew if you let it go, and you do not want to blow that into your air, so change the water regular, and let the pad dry out now and again, and keep it clean. Do not run it in a sealed-up room, because it is adding a little moisture to the air, so you want a window cracked to let the air move through and out, not build up damp. And this is a cooler of the air right in front of it, a personal cooler for the room you are in, not a machine to cool a whole house top to bottom. Set it near where you sit or sleep and let it cool your own patch of air. Used that way, in dry country, it is one of the best few dollars you will ever spend against the heat. So put it all together, and here is the plain picture. A box fan you already own, a few dollars of cooler pad, or even just a thick towel, a tray of water for the pad to wick from. Set it up in front of you with a window cracked to let the air move. And on a hot, dry day, Feel the air come off it, 10 and more degrees cooler, for pennies of electric, and no machine at all. That is the whole trick, thousands of years old, and it still works exactly as well as it ever did, in the dry, for those who know it. And here is why nobody taught you this. There is no money in a box fan and a $3 pad and a tray of water. There is a great deal of money in the air conditioning machine and the electric to run it all summer long. The company that sells you cooling does not profit when you cool yourself with water and a breeze for pennies. So the old wet mat trick that cooled kings in the desert 3,000 years ago quietly fell out of memory in the places it would still work, because there was no dollar in reminding you of it. That is not a wicked plot mind. It is simpler than that. The free thing makes nobody rich, so nobody speaks of it. So I am speaking of it. So here is what I want you to do this week, if you live in the dry country where this works. Take your box fan and hang a good wet towel in front of it, just a wet towel to start, and sit behind it and feel the difference in the air. That costs you nothing but a towel and a few minutes, and it will show you the whole truth of the thing in one afternoon. And if it cools you, and it will if your air is dry, then go get yourself a few dollars of proper cooler pad and a tray, and build the steady kind that wicks its own water. Do it where your children can see, and tell them how the water carries the heat away, because that is how this knowledge comes back. And if you live in the wet country, do not build this, and I will not have you waste your money. Instead, go back to what I have taught you before: the shade, the moving air, the opening at night and sealing at noon, for that is your road to a cool house, not this one. I would rather tell you the truth and save you the trouble than sell you a dream that does not fit your air. Tell me in the comments what state you are writing from, and whether your summers are dry or sticky, because that one answer decides whether this whole method is a gift to you or no use at all. And if your own people had a way of cooling the air with water, the wet sheet, the swamp cooler, the damp cloth in the window, share it, because those old ways vanish the moment nobody writes them down. I read every single one. Next time, since we have been speaking of water and the cool it carries, I'm going to show you how the old folks kept their drinking water cool and their butter firm through the hottest days, with a clay pot and a wet cloth and no ice at all. Another trick of the same old wisdom. It is the natural next step after today. Subscribe so you do not miss it. Keep the simple things close. They were never half so foolish as they looked. I am Earl Dean. I will see you next time.